I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Hello folks, welcome back to the show. This is another episode in a mini-series about how to increase your profit, right? This is very simple, basic concepts, but which if you apply them consistently, like a lot of very simple principles applied consistently, is going to get you way further than getting obsessed with the latest little tactic that may work for 5-10 minutes until everyone else discovers it or Amazon bans it. So this is, you know, big picture thinking, guys, important stuff. By the way, if you are a person that needs some more input than just a barrage of stuff coming from the internet, you know, podcasts, Facebook groups, you name it. By the way, if you want a small Facebook group, you could come and join us. In ours is about 620 members or something like that. www.amazingfba.com/FB, F as in face, B as in book. If you've been listening for long enough, you know me, that litany by now. But if you find that it's like drinking from a fire hose, then welcome to the club. I feel the same way, and that's why these days I'm not a massive fan of spending a lot of time online on Facebook groups or even like online generally. I will spend a certain amount of time not in the internet per se, but in the Facebook chat, what do you call it, the messenger, the PM messenger on my phone from people in the mastermind of which I'm a member, and that's incredibly valuable. And we have physical meetings as well, and there's nothing like physically meeting without really accessing the internet. I mean, we just use our computers for notes, but that's about it. To think clearly about this business, and if that resonates with you, then I run a mastermind, which you probably heard about it. I've probably done it to death, but I'm going to keep mentioning it in case it's of value to you, because the people who've heard about it on this podcast and come have found it incredibly powerful. I mean, I was surprised at just how good the last meeting was. We have a couple of places left for December, so if you're interested in checking that out, go to amazingfba.com/mastermind, MASTERMIND. But if you need too much help spelling mastermind, it could be that you're not quite in the right place with trying to run your own business anyway. Okay, so to the business today, we are talking about the 2 ways to decrease your costs, and they're basically only 2 ways. And the first one I'm going to talk about today is your overheads. It's amazing how over time your overheads creep up. I realized a while ago with the shock that I sat down and I simply downloaded as a CSV file, so that's like a spreadsheet, an Excel type file, from my bank, a list of all the expenses I was paying out, or my business was paying out rather, every month, and it came to about £700. And I thought, my God, now I am in a position where I've been in business for a while, so my overheads are high, but then that's hopefully to some degree balanced out and measured out with my income. But nevertheless, I thought that was just a bit wasteful. And also I try out a lot of software, partly so I can talk to you guys about it, partly because I'm interested, and I speak to the owners of software companies, and then I try them out, and various reasons why I would do it. But anyway, I realized this was excessive, so every so often I just have a simple cull. I go through and say, do I really need this? Does my business really need this to function? And often the answer is no. And sometimes it's really as basic as, for example, Xero, which is a software that I've been using for 2 years. It's probably as good as anything else, like QuickBooks is the other classic one. In theory, it works really well. In practice, I've just found it so much hard work that I've kind of given up on it. And at that point, I need to be honest with myself and say, for example, I need to cull Xero, and I need to cull A2X, which is the accounting software I use to turn Amazon statements into invoices in order to get the 2 systems to link. Now, if you're a fan of it, go ahead and use it. You know, personally, I would say if you're starting off a business, you don't need it, just use spreadsheets. At some point, maybe you want to use Xero, in which case, then make sure you put it into place at that point, but you don't need to do it excessively early, okay? You don't really need a ton of different softwares when it comes to research. It's very easy for them all to accumulate. There's this, that, and the other. I use Jungle Scout. I use Keyword Inspector, which are fantastically powerful and reliable tools. Sometimes I use Merchant Words. Even then, I'm not even convinced that that's important. Okay, so I would say there are 2 basic keyword research tools I use, which I find very powerful. Hey, those 2, Jungle Scout, Keyword Inspector. That's pretty much it. I'm in the Jungle Scout Chrome extension. If you want to do your research by the idea of generating ideas up front from a set of criteria mechanically rather than organically, you might want to also subscribe for a period to the Jungle Scout web app, which is really useful, and I think of the things that are out there, it's pretty handy. A lot of other things that you can use are free tools like Keepa, Keepa, Keepa. pretty useful. And Camel, 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 or 3 camels, those are useful for tracking price, history, and BSR, i.e. ranking history respectively. So those are pretty handy things, but they're free, right? So don't let your software costs accumulate above all. Okay, other things you might end up paying overheads for. Phone lines. I've got a very inefficient thing which I've allowed to run on because I haven't replaced it yet, where I have a business address in London, but it costs me £17 a month, and I have no need for it because nobody ever writes to me, because I'm running an online business, for goodness sake. Who's going to write to me? Okay, the HMRC and Companies House is the answer. HMRC is in Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, the tax guys we love and know in the UK, not. They're going to write to my company's so-called registered address anyway. So that will get forwarded to me as a director of the company. And the same is true for Companies House. Anything else is probably pretty much a waste of time. Okay, so you might want to get yourself a registered address. You want to get a service address as a director if you want to keep your personal address private. Now, I recently had my phone hacked. I think possibly as a result of the fact that as a company director, my details are out there, and be aware of this, guys. This can be a danger. So in that case, paying for a service address might be money well spent, okay? But that's the kind of thing you can cull. So basically, I would say once a quarter if you can, if you're disciplined. I've done it kind of like twice in 2.5 years, which is not enough, right? But sit down and download your monthly list of outgoings and just look at what you can cull. It's amazing what you can cull if you're disciplined. And if your overheads, that is your indirect costs, your overheads are driving your business from profit to loss, basically you probably, unless you're right at the beginning of the growth stage, need to be culling that stuff, right? Now, caveat, if you are really aggressive to grow quickly, you need to set the systems in place first, right? And then grow it. If you're going to be less aggressive though, you need to bootstrap to start with, and then get the cash back into the system, and at that point you can spend a sort of proportionate amount on your overhead. So there you go. It's very simple, but really it's so easy to let overhead just creep away, because we don't check it obsessively as Amazon sellers. Let's face it, be honest, you obsessively check at least once a day. And if you're selling stuff right now in America, don't tell me you're checking once a day, because I just don't believe you. I'm obsessively checking Cash Cow Pro, which is a really useful bit of software that I would advise having. It's not a must-have, but it's really handy for tracking profit and loss. And I personally find it saves me a lot of time, and it gives me a pretty clear overview. Another little app that I do use is the Seller mobile app, because that keeps me abreast of things. Having said that, I mean, the Cash Cow Pro covers a lot of stuff. Cash Cow Pro, I think, is about $29 a month, and it covers a hell of a lot of different things. So it covers email follow-ups for Amazon. It covers price testing if I want to do split testing on price or other aspects of my listing. It covers profit and loss, and a couple of other things besides, which I can't remember offhand because I didn't really care about them so much. But that is an example of how you can kill a few birds with one stone. Now, if you're really ambitious, you might use Feedback Genius, because it has more split testing for emails and offers that, and that can be important. And if you're ambitious as well, you might want to use Hello Profit if you've got a lot of SKUs, because it does a more precise job of measuring profit. But there you go. These are things that you can scale up to in the future if you need to. So don't try and sort of have the big boy toys in terms of having really sophisticated software when you don't really need it, because a lot of the time you should be manually tracking stuff at the beginning to start with anyway, so that you make sure you understand your numbers. It's not a question of you have to do your numbers yourself. Yes, at some point automate and use software, and at some point delegate to somebody else, but don't spend your life delegating and automating things you just don't understand, because if you don't understand it, you won't understand the result that comes back either. So if you don't understand pay-per-click, your wonderful PPC software really won't make sense to you anyway. So do it manually to start with, then move to automating, and at that point you can assess the value of your time, the amount of money coming in, and how to spend it. Anyway, so it's a very, very simple thing, but trust me, most people don't look at this because it's not sexy, it's not on Amazon, we're not obsessed with it, we don't look at our bank accounts anything like as much as we look at Amazon. So we're not really aware of indirect costs, i.e. overhead, but it can be the killer. So check it through, and if need be hard-hearted. Set yourself a percentage you're going to cut. I set myself to cut 2/3 of my costs last time, and I managed it without really losing a hell of a lot of functionality for my business. So be hard-hearted, be tough, make some tough decisions, and get that overhead down, guys, and you'll immediately increase your profit. Thanks, guys. Next video, how the other half works of decreasing your costs. Some very simple, very actionable ways to immediately get your profits up. Catch you then.